Welcome into the court. I'm your host, Justice Hype. No, this isn't the court of law, more like the court of public opinion and factual information, where you or I can be the judge, jury, plaintiff, or defendant. And today we enter into the court chambers one Mr. Garfield McCoy, better known to the world as Ricky Trooper, of Killamanjaro, and one Mr. Noel Harper, popularly known to the world as Papa Jaro. Okay, and this is a long time coming as we examine this case going on in the public space and media right now. Enough talking going, and we just want to get to the facts and the legalities. I'm gonna try and leave my personal opinion out of this matter as much as I possibly can, even though that is difficult, being a big fan of Ricky Trooper and someone who respects Mr. Harper and what he has presented and given us in the dancehall space. So here we go into the facts, and we begin. As I said, I want to be as respectful to Ricky Trooper and Mr. Harper, but be as objective as possible. Not be speaking from a groupie perspective, a fan perspective. And let me give this disclaimer before I go any further, because I know enough people now no sense. I am not an attorney, and I am not giving legal advice in this episode of Court in Session. I am someone who has studied law and currently trying to pass the bar exam in New York State, and someone who is very interested in this matter. So I will give forth the factual legalities of it, but I am not rendering any legal advice. Once again, for those who may be hearing impaired, I am not giving any legal advice here. I am just speaking of the factual legalities, leaving feelings aside in this matter and just speaking the facts. Alright, so boom. As everyone knows, Ricky Trooper has recently claimed the name, keyword, the brand name Killamanjaro Soundsystem. As obviously now we haven't known, it was unbeknown to the public that they had a long-standing feud or internal issues going on with the sound system, and it has reached a peak now where it has gone into the public space, and now we have Ricky Trooper saying that he has the right to Killamanjaro sound system. And of course, from Killamanjaro, the other side of Killamanjaro, management side, David Harper, son of Noel Harper, original owner and management of Killamanjaro Sound, saying that Trooper is prohibited from using the sound in Japan for a tour or any dates. And of course, Ricky Trooper's counteraction, as I mentioned, was to state that he cannot be stopped from using the sound because it is his bonding through paperwork, through registry, that he owns the name, the trademark name Killamanjaro. Okay, so this thing has a lot of layers to it, and creeks and corners before you arrive at what the crux of the situation is at the moment. Of course, Ricky Trooper is stating that he doesn't want the sound system itself. I'm guessing that means the physical sound system, including the dub plates. However, he owns the name right to Killamanjaro, and through the work that he has put in, the sweat equity he has put in, he is entitled to carry the sound out to Japan and make an income in which he's able to pay back debt that he incurred while building Killamanjaro, because there's no dispute that Ricky Trooper is an instrumental part, column in the Killamanjaro brand. Of course, Killamanjaro began in 1969, I believe, with Mr. Harper, and has a very, very bona fide history in the dancehall prior to Ricky Trooper's coming on the sound. But nonetheless, in the modern era from the 90s, come right up, right through, because let's be honest, Killamanjaro has been on a lull since the departure of Ricky Trooper, with the exception of a brief moment from Freddie, which Freddie then departed and went on his own. But that's another subject, and we want to stick on the topic here, which is the current situation with Ricky Trooper, Mr. Harper, Killamanjaro, ownership rights, and something that is, this subject is coming full circle now, and I'll get back into that at the end, or I'll come further down when I reach this yet. But something I've wanted to discuss for a very long time. I have been discussing in my personal spaces with friends and colleagues that are in the space, but something I knew that would come to a head at some point, something that would eventually erupt at some point, and that is how sound system business is conducted, or not conducted actually. And the mindset, just eat a food and select a command and you give him a thing and him work the sound. And meanwhile, selector put in sweat equity for years, whether it's in the studio, on the road at night, promotion, all sorts of things, and at the end has nothing, absolutely nothing to show for it. So here it is, you have Ricky Trooper and Killamanjaro, that of course people would say them bust 95 after they killed, and even Ricky Trooper himself said the sound bust, meaning not initial bust but rebus to the world, and the sound became extremely profitable after the win over Addies. And in order for this win to happen, according to Ricky Trooper, some money was spent, some money was borrowed to finance the dub plates that were used to win this clash. Now, the thing I could just address the elephant in the room, people. Go stop, go round. Alright, Ricky Trooper came forth with a story about his girlfriend at the time loaning him some money, and a next entity loaning him some money, which the person now forward back from prison and them want back their money, according to Ricky Trooper. Alright, this is all alleged, because there's actually nothing in paper, in writing, that said that a loan was taken of any particular sum of money, and what date the loan was taken from, and what was the loan taken for. None of this information exists. And therefore, the elephant in the room, and the thing when enough people say, I'm probably no one tell Trooper, because, friendship, groupie thing, is that any loan that Ricky Trooper took from any source, unbeknownst to Mr. Harper, which he himself, stated, Mr. Harper was the owner and manager of the time, at that time. Any loan taken unbeknownst to management or ownership of the sound system has absolutely nothing to do with Mr. Harper. See? And that's one of the big elephants in the room right now, where people are saying, why Trooper entitled to this and Trooper entitled to that. If someone has a business and they have an employee of the business, the employee is not obligated to spend their own money in order to further or advance that business entity. It is on the ownership to finance the production of the company, or whatever in the company entails, in which that would be Mr. Harper. And this is a thing where I saw as a kid coming up playing sound system, and I never really understood fully, or I did understand it after a while, and that's why I decided to not take with myself after a while, because from a business standpoint it made no sense that as someone playing a sound, you would be put in a position as a selector, employee of the sound, to be financing dub plates, which we know are extremely expensive, right? And not only that, there's a lot of work that's entailed that goes into getting the dub plates, and our soundman can attest to that. Between the travel, some soundman have to go up on plane. Ricky Trooper mentioned that himself, taking flights out to find artists. Artists not easy if you deal with. Worse, artists with bus. Alright? Artists will tell you to meet them at studio 4 o'clock and reach studio till 10 o'clock. Your artists are charged 400, a man come with 800 and no one see you again. Him not pre-year the plate again. All kind of things go on. The studio time. More time you're not working in your own studio, so you're paying for the studio time along with the artist or even an engineer on top of it. So there's a lot of sweat equity and a lot of work that goes into getting the dub plates, not to mention then the actual performance of the sound going out on the road. Enough artists, selectors, but especially in those times, used to promote the song on the road, even when it's not playing. So they're out working. Then you're playing sound from night straight back till morning. That's sweat equity. So I never understood, and I knew it would eventually be an issue where the selectors are putting in so much equity and so much work into the sound that eventually they would demand more than just an employee share of the income of the sound, or a piece, an ownership piece of the sound, more so than just being an employee eventually. And here we go. We had the situation with Rory that was very public, and of course the world-renowned, world immortal Stone Love, Billy Slaughter again after that. But we all knew that Rory was synonymous with Stone Love and was instrumental in their brand becoming the household name it was, just as Ricky Trooper is today. Seeing? And yet still we have a space where there is a dispute which will more than likely end up in court, because the truth of the matter is that if Mr. Harper, as Ricky Trooper spoke, did not register the name, then it is absolutely legal for Ricky Trooper to register the name Killamanjaro Sound System. Okay? Now, one thing that I'll point out that is absolute cap, Ricky Trooper mentioned that Killamanjaro would be prohibited if he so chooses. Killamanjaro would be prohibited from using the sound name anywhere, and legally speaking that is false, because the trademark protects the brand after registry through the COP, which is Company's Office of Jamaica. It does not inherently provide standalone trademark protection in Jamaica, meaning once you register that name or that brand name, that name is only respected or acknowledged as a trademark in that territory, which is Jamaica. Now, there is something that is called the Madrid Protocol application, which can be applied through the Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, which extends to member countries. And of course, these member countries now would have absolute authority as to whether to grant that trademark in their country, as there can already be a similar trademark registry in that country. So it doesn't automatically say that through the companies of Jamaica and your trademark registry that your trademark brand is applicable outside the 14 parishes of Jamaica. That was something Ricky Trooper spoke that was incorrect. But as far as what he mentioned with Mr. Harper not putting the name Killamanjaro through registry and securing his brand name, Ricky Trooper is absolutely 100% able to secure trademark naming. Now, he cannot claim ownership to the physical sound system, and as I said before, he mentioned himself through video. There's no deposition of this needed. He mentioned Mr. Harper buying equipment and Mr. Harper's dubplates, which I'll touch upon very shortly. In the beginning, Mr. Harper being very tight with his dubplates, locking them up, securing his dubplates, which further proves, right, that Mr. Harper was or is respected as an owner of Killamanjaro sound system. Now, as we mentioned, dubplates and this whole money borrowing thing or whatnot. On Mr. Harper's side, right, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Mr. Harper worked for Nova Scotia Bank, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say Mr. Harper was, one, no dummy, and two, had some understanding, basic understanding of business. All right, and I have several questions that pertains to this matter towards Mr. Harper, and one being, as stern, as serious as he seemed to have been about his dubplates and securing his dubplates, as Mr. Trooper mentioned, him scolding him or feeling away because he took out some dubplates unbeknown to him without his permission, and Mr. Harper locked the plate or put all kind of lock and security on the plate. How is it possible that even under them not speaking, that Mr. Harper acquired dubplates on his sound? He had to have heard through some audio dubplates playing on his sound. How did he not inquire exactly how these dubplates were secured, since he was very meticulous, it seemed, about the management of his dubplates, which is only right because they are his product. They belong to him as the owner of the sound system, just as the equipment and everything else that went into running and powering Killamanjaro sound system. How could Ricky Trooper leave the sound with the audio files, the cassettes, and the actual dubplates? Farm Sound Trooper, and yet 25 years later, quarter of a century later, still have possession of all of this music as a sound owner? This is a big question that I don't hear a lot of people keying on or asking. Is a very operative question, because if Ricky Trooper was just a selector on the sound and there was an agreement made that he would run the studio, and or we don't know if there was an agreement, but that's how, according to him, the sound system operated. he operate the studio and collect the dub plates, and Mr. Harper would have that understanding. But at the same time, Mr. Harper is locking the dub plates and making sure he secures the dub plates. So how is it that Ricky Trooper leaves the sound to Farm Sound Trooper and still has possession of those recordings and those dub plates? The next question, a next crucial question we have to ask. Ricky Trooper, you took on this debt not only from your woman at the time, but also a next third party. See, where seems like you and this party, this individual, did in agreement with this loan business. Okay, cool. Clash done, whatever be the case. You know you still have this debt over your head. And I don't understand, there's supposed to be this Soundsystem Federation or some sort of arbitration body. Louise Fraser Bennett was mentioned in these conversations. Why couldn't she mediate some type of agreement as to how this money that you loaned or you borrowed to finance this clash get paid back through some type of agreement through the Studio A or through touring or whatever the case may have been? Because obviously, as you mentioned, Killamanjaro was hot after the clash. Killamanjaro was or is still a household name, but at its peak, Killamanjaro was able to tour the entire world and command a profitable income, whereas that may have been able to been paid off or nearly paid off. Once again, people, I don't want to get into exchange rates and how much money borrow, whether it was $500 or $500,000. The point being, Mr. Harper had no legal binding to such loan, and it is not ultimately his responsibility as the owner to pay back any money Ricky Trooper may have borrowed unbeknownst to him. Now, where it falls into is a question of ethics. Now, Mr. Harper, it falls on his good graces. It falls on Mr. Harper's understanding of the situation, and as Ricky Trooper saying, the work he put in and what he means to Killamanjaro, and allowing him that opportunity through his understanding and goodwill for that debt to be cleared. But legally speaking, that debt has nothing to do with Mr. Harper and Killamanjaro management, as I'm quoting Ricky Trooper saying at the time. Ownership and management. And moving forward, this has set a precedent, because trust me, I know one or two soundman me know will end up in a bad situations through why them take up a next man's sound and they end up trying to finance the sound, because what soundman love them name call up in a dub plate and Ray, and them want the shine. They want the shine, so they're gonna try and keep up with the Joneses with the dub plates. And I've seen 9 to 5 selectors, soundman take up them own money and spend on sound and get run off of the sound and end up with nothing. Not even a 45 record for sure. See? And as I mentioned before, it's not just exclusive to Soundsystem, it is in our diaspora. Generally speaking, is this attitude of just eat a food, quick eat a food, and quick hustle mentality instead of longevity and proper business structuring. You know, so where the selector have an understanding that, look, I work this sound and I'm contracted for this length of time to work this sound and make XYZ based on this contract term and this contract length. We gotta get to that. You know, I even me hear Rory mention pension and insurance and all of these things. I thought that's what the Sound Federation was all about. People that was supposedly put together into the 90s. What exactly? I don't know. Maybe someone can enlighten me because I really don't know. I would think that that is what, if you are putting together a body to represent the sound system fraternity properly, you would have some type of arbitration system in place to where there's conflict resolution, and disputes like this could be handled in a manner in which it doesn't end up being a media mess or even ending up in the court of law. Because really and truly, this matter shouldn't even end up in a court of law, or really it shouldn't end up in a social media, in a social space. It should end up right at the foot of the two people in the courtroom today, which is Ricky Trooper and Mr. Harper. But of course, we have our next thing in the diaspora that we have to deal with, and it's called ego. And when man and man ego get into the situation, it becomes even more difficult to find amicable solutions. So as fans, and I know the fans want to see Killamanjaro in action. As I said, the sound system, the brand has been in a lull for the better of 2 decades, and we'd love to see it rise back again. And maybe Trooper would have been that spark plug, because, not to disrespect anybody, it just hasn't worked out with the team that has been in place for the last 2 decades. That's just speaking from a fan's perspective, but from a legal and a factual perspective, once again, Ricky Trooper has all legal right to claim the brand name Killamanjaro if it was not properly registered and licensed under the COP, which is the Company Office of Jamaica, which, by the way, the LTD he mentions is limited liability, and also limited to the 14 parishes of Jamaica. And if that is to be extended, he'd have to go through what is called the Madrid Protocol application, which is submitted through Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, the JPO, and that extends across member countries where applicable, because they do not have to grant that particular trademark in their country. Each country has its own particular office of registry for copyrights and trademarks. That is how that works. So the whole 150 states, I think you mentioned, up to now, to this point, until that Madrid Act goes through and each one of those states honors his trademarks, that is false. And let's just say, for instance, Killamanjaro took a date in Barbados, or started working. They have a select out in Barbados. Ricky Trooper could not legally, with the paperwork he presented, prohibit Killamanjaro Sound from working in Barbados or any other country that does not uphold his trademark. So it's something where more that make for talk, and people are going to talk all sort of things. And like I said, I just wanted to objectively deal with the reality of this and deal with the facts that it is going to most likely be an ugly situation. I wish they could amicably come up with agreement, something that mutually works. And I feel like with all the sweat equity that Ricky Trooper has, and me knowing the journey of a sound man, the work, the time that it takes in order to have a functional sound system, much less a successful sound system that is at its peak and world renowned. that is worth something. And I think that they could amicably come up to a solution that works and profits both sides. Whether Ricky Trooper can get to pay back the loan that he took, and Mr. Harper get to have his son back on the road and have his brand stand once again among the top where it belongs internationally. I hope that is to come. And why I mention that, what this is like a situation where it come full circle, is because as a young lad, as a youth playing sound, as I said before, I had my experiences where I'm running into soundmen in the studio, they're spending their money. And not only that, prior to that, first look a sound system I built, 16 years old, me and a group of friends. I was traveling to and from Jamaica every holiday or every vacation, buying records. I always had 45s from me, younger youth, say maybe 8-9 years old. I'm bringing records from Jamaica, come back in Florida, New York, so forth. Good. One youth had a set of turntables. Next youth had some records as well. I think he had a microphone. We all came together. Once again, I was 16 years old, local side hustle, and I think I kept a mild job at that time, paid minimum wage or whatever. Buy up a new mark mixer, and buy up some speakers. Long story short, one day we went to the youth's house, which his house was the setup house because he had the only cool dad in the neighborhood, and we could get to play the sound and practice in his room with the sound set up in his room. Boom. So we go over in the yard and surprise, empty. I remember it like it was yesterday. We looked through the living room window to how the house did empty, like the curtain never did it. I just one big glass where I look through and I see the empty house. And I remember there was no cell phones at the time, it was beeper time. So we rushed to a cell phone and start blow up the man, right? We couldn't call the house phone obviously because we knew that the house was empty. So we're beeping him for days. Long story short, we got the news. The youth left town with the entire sound, or what we had of a sound at that particular time. I think we did like maybe 3 or 4 parties as a sound system. But that was a harsh lesson at 16 years old about ownership, owning your own shit, and having something taken from you that you work for and you contribute to, as you're substantial contributor for, and it being removed completely from you in the blink of an eye. And not only that, after that experience, even after that, now meeting a sound owner in a record shop, and long story short, he had a sound in Jamaica that was building, and he had some Garnet Silk and a couple other nice big songs on it as well. But the song never bust, and the owner came, and he was over in foreign, staying for a while, and he said he wants somebody to play the song. Long story short, for a brief moment in the hype, wanting to be a part of the sound system culture, I agreed to take on the sound. He gave me some songs, and he said, that's what I can give you, that's all I'm going to put on it. And after a while, realizing that it was going to cost me a hell of a lot of money to keep that sound, or bust the sound, keep that sound stable as far as upkeep, maintenance of even just having the dub plates and the top piece of a sound system, and trying to promote it, that was going to cost, and I wasn't getting the backing from the owner. And being a young youth that had his whole life ahead of him, I decided which was very wise, looking back, to send back the man songs them and focus on school and other things at that time. But yeah, that's my full circle moment in this time now, seeing as a big man now on my 40s, looking at what's going on with the selectors in the space, and the whole landscape of sound system and business, where they both intersect. Sound owners, you better start running down to that office of business, or business office of companies, and your local business registries, and registering your brand names. Also start paying taxes and start paying your employees and keeping documentation and written agreements of how studio work is supposed to be managed and facilitated around your sound to legally protect your sound. I knew this day was eventually coming, because sound man I put in too much work for too long, I end up with nothing, end up with zero. See, and the next thing that deterred me from sound business as a young lad, I'm just remembering this, now I call him name, but a promoter, a big promoter in Florida at the time that I was pushing flyers out in the street for, he said to me, because I was just trying to get on, whether it be on a song or whatever, you know what I'm saying, just promotion, whatever the case may be. I just love the entertainment business, and more so even sound business itself. And the promoter looked at me and him said, "Youth, the man them where you see people are real over and you listen upon the cassette, them I make Willie nice. Them not make no money, you know." And I was like, "Huh? What?" And the man back out a receipt. I'll never forget this. The man back out a receipt from Western Union. And he showed me the amount of money a particular sound that he booked was getting. And he broke down what exactly a particular selectors too at the time, that were very big household names at the time, at their peak, were going to make based on that booking. And that helped change my whole perspective of sound business and how to approach sound business if you're not dealing with it from just a hobby approach. Because if I do something you do and you have your 9 to 5 and you say, "Sure, this is something I just love do and I want to do it as a hobby," that's one thing. But if you're looking at this as something that you want to maintain longevity in, and you want to feed a family, you're going to have to structure it in such a way that there is residual, there is income that stays consistent throughout your duration in the business. And the only way to do that is through proper paperwork and legalities. So all in all, people can say what them want to say about what Ricky Trooper do. And, a lot of it is fanfare and groupieism and whatnot. Call it as you will. Call it as you will. I personally, as a fan of Killamanjaro sound system, is very disheartening to see this. It's very disheartening to see where the sound is at this particular time. After seeing where the heights it reached and what that brand meant to not only dancehall itself, but the sound system diaspora, where it has fallen right now. And as I started off saying, quarter century and we're here discussing this. I would be much more pleased discussing a major victory in a clash, a world tour, or something, a new merch line, something, a new radio station, something else other than a beef between two of the main pillars of the sound. And I will state it as such. Two of the main pillars of the sound. Papa Jaro from inception up until the point where Ricky Trooper came in and, of course, contributed a lot. For those who may not know, we may not have or know Anthony B the way we know Anthony B, know a Luciana, know a Sizzler without the work of Ricky Trooper. So we have to big up Ricky Trooper, and it should be taken into account the level of work he put in while he was on the sound system. And regardless of people want to ask, you have Sound Trooper, that's a good question. The question I see circulating about he have Sound Trooper now, why am I bother with Killamanjaro sound? It's a very, very good question. My guess is that he love Sound Trooper. I have to love Sound Trooper because he put time and sweat equity into his own sound, but he probably have a next special love for Killamanjaro, because Killamanjaro at the end of the day made Ricky Trooper the household name we know him as today. Can't go around that, none at all. See? So we're gonna close on this note here, watching what is to happen moving forward with all selectors go forth handling their business, how sound owners go forth handling their business, registering names, likenesses and imagery, merchandising, I should say, and just the overall marketing of their sound, and how artists will be paid, and how will their work on these respective sound systems be structured. It's very interesting, and as I said, something that should be taken up by some type of governing body that everybody pays dues to, almost like a union. And that's what I thought the Sound System Federation was supposed to represent from the 90s. I know that, of course, ego is involved, and there's politics involved, and bad mind involved, as we like to say, always active. That's always going to interfere with things progressing and proceeding. But at some point, well, I forget the thing together, man. I forget the thing together. And really and truly, artists is bad enough when artists fall sick, and there's no pension in the music business like that. You know what I'm saying? Other than your publishing. And I always preach that artists better secure their publishing, because that's their pension. Well, selectors, sound man, them not have no pension, and they do a lot of hard work, and work that entails a lot of times sacrificing your health. You lose sleep. Sometimes they're not eating properly. You see me? So there needs to be some type of plan in place for them to be able to get insurance, for them to be able to get some type of pension if they work a certain period of time on a sound system, and they contribute a certain amount to a sound system. They're supposed to be able to have some type of funding there for them, for that work that they've put in. Let me know what you think. This is Court in Session, and once again, I just manners and respect. I'm out.